Edge and Node. And today we have a coworker of mine, Pranav, here. And Pranav, if those of you don't out there know who Pranav is, if you don't mind introducing yourself, Pranav, really briefly, as we then go into what you've been doing for the last few days, weeks out in Europe. So let's go get an introduction and let's hear what you've been up to, man.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for calling me for the Graph office hour. I think it is my first one. Been with the Graph team for about 4 years now, been in Web3 7 years, and I could not be more excited to have this opportunity for the first time to talk about a framework that is very close to me and something I've been working on very like deeply with the whole team about hypergraphs. Last month, I was in Europe, having enjoying the European summers, but also building this new primitive that could change the whole scope of how Web3, is considered and how things are in Web3. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation today. I have a very sick presentation of how and why the graph launched this new framework called hypergraphs. And I think it might be the next big change in how Web3 applications are built. It might be the Apache movement of the Web3 ecosystem.
I like that.
And I have certain stats to prove that to you. So
I
I'm
like
really excited, interested, and seeing how things are. Regarding my designation, I'm one of the engineers at Edge and Node. Um, and I've been with the team for a very long time. I enjoy working on infrastructure tooling as well as DevX, and this has been my focus for a very long time until we released Hypergraphs. This is something new, very interesting and exciting for me.
Yeah,
So
and
excited.
I'm gonna brag about you for a second, Pranav. For as many hats as I wear as DevRel, I think you wear more hats somehow. The amount of times I see you helping out in so many different areas in any given day is super impressive. So, hats off to you and how adaptable and skilled you are in so many different ways. And so, yeah, we are talking about Hypergraph today, and I spent a month plus working on the code, building and helping out to the engineers where I could, doing the documentation, doing lots of different work. I've dropped that into the chat right now. So if anyone out there wants to get to know Hypergraph, hop in the docs, hop in the repo. We are in the process of making sure the developer experience is as good as possible. As part of this process to get the world aware of Hypergraph, Pranav, you were in Europe doing a little tour sharing hypergraph details. What was that like? Tell me about what it was like sharing the details of hypergraph and then also what it was like interacting with builders who were using the repo.
Totally, totally. I would say for sure this is like, back into the weeds of the graph from subgraphs when it used to exist back in those days 4 years ago, and it was a little more patchy. The DevX was not that good, but it was something interesting and needed by the developer ecosystem. They embraced it with both their hands and worked on it. I think it's the same right now with uh, with hypergraphs as well. There are things that needs to be improved. The documentation is not perfect, but Marcus got it running in less than 2 weeks. There were some templates and tooling that needed to be improved, and I think that's also something that the team worked on very quickly and spun things out. But the underlying technology is so interesting that uh, as we presented it with limited DevX, limited educational resources, limited documentation, plus a little bit patches here and there, people built really cool applications that Eat Global can. And this is what I'm here to discuss with you about.
Yeah, and the way that I'm understanding it, and I've been, of course, in the underbelly of the code and writing the documentation, and it's still a learning process for me. And this is a brand new process for everybody. And for those who are coming up with these concepts, knowledge graphs have been around for a very long time. This is a new iteration of them specific to Web3 and also specific to this new AI age, which I think is fascinating, where we're kind of at this intersection where I believe hypergraph as a framework can really proliferate. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this new framework and creating apps, how crypto and AI is here, and I'm excited to hear what you have to share. You have a presentation, correct? And it goes over some of the details of Hypergraph. Would that be good to get into?
Yeah, we can get into it, but maybe like you can give a small introduction in a DevRel style, and then
Sure.
I can get deep dive into like more of an engineer, and then
Yeah,
we
yeah.
can
I
take
mean,
it
I
from
would
there.
say
Yeah.
Hypergraph equals apps in Web3. Is that about as fast as you can get of a summary?
Wow. Yeah, yeah. Maybe yeah, that's a good start.
I mean, that's about as fast as you can get in understanding what this is aiming to do. And that we've heard for years, hypergraph, excuse me, not years, we've heard for years there's not enough apps in Web3. There's just not enough apps in Web3. There's not enough apps in Web3. We've heard that for years. And Hypergraph is here to help and actually provide a framework that gives opportunities for Web3 developers, and not just Web3 developers, but just developers in general, to build in a way that is really supported by the philosophies of Web3 as a whole. So, privacy by default, there's cryptography baked right in. There's lots of features that are native for Web3 developers that Web2 developers can hop in and learn. There's database first thinking in terms of thinking of the actual storage and then the front end. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting ways that an app can be built using this framework. And I could keep on talking. The generator is great. The CLI is great. The TypeScript is great. I'm like babbling now, but essentially, Hypergraph is Web3 apps. And how's that for a high level DevRel intro, Pranav?
I think that's really good. That's a really good start. I can go deeper from there. But
Go for it,
yeah, I
buddy.
would say hypergraphs generally are the Web3 apps. Yeah.
Awesome, buddy. All right. Well, I'll let you take over. Go ahead. I'll be off screen. Or do you want me to actually? I can be on screen and we just talk as you go over the presentation because that's good. Let's do that. All right. Yeah. Go ahead and share your screen. Let's do the presentation. I'll mute myself, but if I ever want to chat or if chat has a question, I'll pop in. Okay.
All right. So this is the introduction to hypergraphs, what it is, what are the details, and everything around it, right? So first of all, let's think about all the apps that we use in our daily lives. Most of these applications, as you can see, are social applications, right? If you think about it, about average, not me, I use like 10 hours of mobile every day. Most people, mobile as in electronics and phone and everything, 10 hours per day. Most of the people use at least 4.5 hours who don't even work in technology space. They utilize internet 4.5 to 5 hours every day, utilize web 4.5 hours, 5 hours every day. And 96% of the applications that they are using are non-financial, right? Most of this is non-financial applications. You hardly see somebody doing payment, even if he's a big Shopify person or an Amazon person. 96% of the time people are just scrolling through the web, and only 4% of the time that they are making transactions or making any financial decisions on the web. But if we consider web3 to be the next web3 is web better than web2, the next web, then how many Ethereum applications are non-financial? Like, if it is the better web, that's where the paradigm is shifting, and that's where in the future people will be scrolling. How many applications are actually non-financial? If you think about it, and this is the data from DApp Radar, about 40% of all the Web3 transactions are financial, and then 10% are AI, and then there's some social fi, which is also very, very financial, and only less than 30% includes or constitutes of gaming and social fi. Why is that so? Why is social fi, if Web3 is the next internet's revolution, then why is that such a big gap that in Web2, 96% of all the interactions are non-financial, and here about 70% of all the transactions are financial? Why is that the case? And even most of the dApps that are built in the ecosystem, about 40% are financial. And if you ask me how many are successful revenue generating amazing financial non-financial applications in Web3. I would not be able to even count them in my hands in full. There are very limited non-financial applications which have become successful. Why is that the case? Why is there such a big difference in Web 2 and Web 3 in the way users interact? Users are the same, right? Their activities and their habits are almost same. However, their interaction is different. The way they do things is different. Why is that the case? I would say, and this is my argument, that DeFi is better than TradFi. And that is a claim from that I make. That DeFi
I
has
agree.
been,
I agree.
and
Yeah.
there is a reason behind that, and that
Yep.
reason is single-handedly ERC20 paradigm.
Yep.
So the reason why I feel DeFi is better than TradFi is because when we were creating Web3 and we were making financial applications, we embedded ERC20 inside the code design. And we did not copy TradFi and neo banking system and just posted it on the blockchain. We created a new paradigm. We made it permissionless. It was a ERC20 run economy, and hence DeFi has its own flavor and not a copy of just TradFi or just a blockchain or permissionless or Web3 tokenized copy of the TradFi. It was its own new thing, and that I think is because of the paradigm that we have, which was ERC20. But if we think about Web3 socials that have been built in the last few months, years after the famous Vitalik talk at ETHCC in 2022 about we need to move more non-financial, what has happened with Web3 social fi applications? Have they got that kind of impression, revenue generating, value accruing ecosystem? I would say the answer is no. Most of the Web3 applications we use currently is just a copy of the Web2 application, but on the blockchain, right? A Twitter clone, a Reddit clone, a Facebook clone.
Yep.
Uh, and
And the frustrating thing for me anytime I develop is seeing how many things are almost shoehorned into like an ERC stand, like, you know what I mean? It doesn't quite work. I totally agree. It's like this, there's something not designed well at the root.
right. And that's why we want the Web3 to be the next, internet of the world, the next Ethereum to be the next supercomputer, the universal computer of the world. And hence, there needs to be the DeFi world, which has escalated the whole TradFi world, and now TradFi is trying to get into DeFi. That moment also needs to exist on SocialFi. That's when Web3 becomes reality. And that's why there needs to be a primitive like ERC20 in the SocialFi space as well. And that's why we have something called the GRC20 standard. And this is something that the Graph has been working for a while, and they released it recently. It's called the GRC20 standard. What this enables and empowers are knowledge graphs. Now, what are knowledge graphs? This is a very tech heavy question, has existed for a while. A lot of AI people are very interested in knowledge graphs because they could make LLMs more efficient. There is that particular thinking. But if you think in more just the Web3 terms, you can think about if on the web everything was interconnected, everything that existed on the face of the web was interconnected. Reddit, Instagram, Google News, Facebook, Twitter was all interconnected, and all the data was interportable. You could keep things private to your own sync servers, local first, and then what you wanted to share was all available in one specific go. That would have been so amazing. Just think about it. I'll give you one example. You love LinkedIn. It's a very good professional application, but you do not like the UI. You want to create a LinkedIn where you can swipe left and swipe right people, like a LinkedIn, but on Tinder or something like that, right? Would you start from scratch? The answer is no, because all the users, all the network effects currently exist on LinkedIn. And it would be really tough to bootstrap from scratch on users. And that is the problem. That is the whole problem of web. That is the whole problem of the whole web design. that LinkedIn can now be extractive, has all the user data that you created, monetize it to build its own business, and making sure you are trapped in their network. But they might not be giving you the best experience. If the web was created in such a way with knowledge graph that all the data exists on a layer, and all the front end applications like LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram was just polling data, then LinkedIn would not have siloed your data in their application. It would have existed on the universal knowledge graph, and you could interoperate from one user base to the second user base to the third user base. And then users would win, front ends would win, better experiences would win. And that, I think, is the absolute innovation
Yeah,
in the whole
I,
of Web3
the,
social fire.
the way that traditional finance initially didn't understand crypto and initially said, "Hey, that's cool, whatever. We're traditional finance, no big deal. That's nice." And then all of the use cases came out, and then now they want in. I imagine this happened a few months ago. I was working on deep into hypergraph worlds things and just GRC20, really trying to understand this. I said, okay, if I was to actually want to create using YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, use Netflix, use all of these things, Reddit, use all of this, exactly this design right here with all of their data and have that be into my app, how much would that actually cost me to actually do that properly? To actually if I want Twitter's API and get that per month, what is it now per month? It's crazy. And to actually say, hey, we're not going to be able to do that. We're not going to be able to get Twitter's data. It's already centralized. We're not going to be able to get Reddit's data. We're not going to be able to do this. But what we can do is start small. Start small with creating a new way of interacting with the data. Initially, these major data organizations are going to be like, oh, cool, that's cute, no big deal. Just like they did with ERC20. And I could see in time, with more use cases coming out, this exact same pattern will emerge. I absolutely see that, where we see what we saw with traditional finance now jumping on board and having worldwide success in terms of this DeFi movement. That's great, like huge use case. There hasn't been an ERC20 moment for just data, and I feel like there needs to be that for the fuel for this next push of Web3.
Totally. That makes total sense. And that is why we are launching this primitive. Again, the argument is that the reason why DeFi is better than TradFi is we built it from scratch with our own primitives called the ERC20. The reason and the opportunity for social fi to be as good as DeFi and make it better than the Web2 world is not copying it, but launching its own primitives with GRC20 and Knowledge Graph and building its own application. And if you think about it, even in Web2, small perks you can see of knowledge graphs existing. Let's think about it. You all have this app on your phone, right? It's called the photo app on iPhone, right? And you take a photo, it has a face, and when you click that face, all the photos with that particular person comes. That is sort of a knowledge graph, and it is such a magical application use case, isn't it? That's where I feel the differences. If this experience could be expanded to the whole of the internet, you could get network effects would exist on user level and not on data level, and that's where a lot of magic could have happened, and that's how web3 social fi should be built, and that's whole of the argument.
And the cool thing is, we have a template for this already. Like we saw how ERC20 was able to make horrific mistakes and do some incredible things. We saw how this traditional finance world completely shifted. You know, we have such an advantage to actually like say, hey, we see what happened. We can see how that might adapt to this new standard. And with that being said, talking about apps, Barry is here today. Barry just hopped in the chat. Barry was part of the ETH Global Con hackathon, and correct me if I'm wrong, Barry, but you won using Hypergraph. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Can you guys see
Awesome.
me? Hi.
Yeah, we can see you.
Thank
We
you.
can see you. Pranav was right
Amazing,
in the
amazing.
middle. Pranav was right in the middle of talking about apps, and then you literally
Oh,
signed in right now. So let's go. Let Pranav keep on going, but
Yeah.
the timing on that was too good.
So if you think about it, the whole agenda of mine is like, to build better apps on Ethereum with our own primitives. And but where are the apps? Right now, the whole conversation in the Web3 ecosystem at ETHCAN is also where are all the apps? And apps won't exist unless we have frameworks. And this also could have been seen in the Web2 ecosystem. In the Web2 ecosystem, we had web frameworks, and that changed the billions of apps that could have been built just because we had the Web2 frameworks, web frameworks that enabled that. You need to empower devs with the framework, the right sort of framework, and the right sort of primitives to build it. The right sort of primitive is is GRC20, and the right sort of frameworks also need to exist. In Web 2, Apache's launch in December 1995 escalated the number of apps that could be built on web. And I think we need a framework of our own, and hence we launched the primitive called GRC20, and we also launched in CAN our own framework called Hypergraphs to build these local first Web3 consumer apps. Let me dive a little bit deeper about it, and then let's see how that goes. Okay, so spaces, the one of the main thing about hypergraphs in the middle of it is spaces, GRC20 spaces. There are different spaces in the Web3. You can create your own space and populate the data inside it and work with it all across. And this is the whole concept of spaces. We can go in deep in further introductions about it, but right now, just to introduce you, one of the major features of hypergraph framework are the spaces. And there are two sorts of spaces: public spaces and private spaces. For public spaces, just think about a user application, like somebody is making a movie review app, right? Most of the movie information, so movies would be a space, and in that, all the movie act, like one specific movie, the actors who acted on it, this that will all exist on a public space. All the reviews, all the ratings would exist on a public space. And then there would be some information, let's say both the directors talking and stuff like that, that could happen on a private space because they don't want to publish it on a probably a sync server that we'll talk about in the few. So there is a public space and there is a private space that constitutes the whole of the hypergraph ecosystem. And this is a good, illustrative to make you understand what's a public space and a private space. So a public space basically posts all the information via IPFS on geo blockchain. That's a public space. And then there is a private space which posts information through a sync server, using CRDTs between me and you. So let's say I want to create a messenger app, local first, and I create it like Signal. Signal uses sync servers as well. So we are giving that opportunity of building that framework for using Web3, features uh, via private spaces. So if I want to create a messenger app, I would, between you and me, Marcus and Barry, most of the things we talk about, I won't be posting it public, right? Because everything we talk about. So most of that will remain private. So there will be a sync server between the three of us. And then Barry starts acting like a madman and we want to kick him out. So we kick him out and the keys will be rotated in such a way that now he does not have the access and two of us have the access. And in the future, it will be all the data will be stored local first. So both of us can still chat without internet. That's where the sync server's beauty will be coming up. It's a private space between the two of us, which uses the application of blockchain and sync servers to build a local first experience for people. And some things we want to post online as well. publicly, and that can be then published in the coming weeks and months. So this is a higher level of what hypergraphs is. Hypergraphs gives you ability to create spaces, to post data publicly on the blockchain, to also have application to have private data between peer-to-peer network applications. It is real-time sync, and has the best framework to build consumer apps on Ethereum. Some examples and ideas, if you can think about it, we have already started posting on the Geo testnet some interesting data sets, like project information, VC information, uh, voting information, stuff like that, right? And if you want to build a front end for those things, you can use the Hypergraph's public space and create your own interesting front end. So if you want to create a CoinGecko, right now only CoinGecko in its Postgres server is saving all the data and registry about people, about these projects. But that is not the right way. I think that data needs to exist publicly for anybody to be able to use it, right? And that's where all the data right now on testnet.geobrowser.io exists in a specific space. You can go to crypto space and query all the project information, their categories, their current market cap, uh, and build your own CoinGecko using Hypergraph framework. Similarly, for VCs, if you want an interesting space for VCs, let's say how many VCs deployed more than $10 million in capital in the last 6 months, you can have that sort of a dashboard created. So those sort of interesting data sets exist on the knowledge graph. Utilize that, have public and private spaces, and build these interesting applications for yourself. Now at ETH Global Can, we had 4 really interesting applications built with hypergraphs. I'm going to explain 3 and then give Barry the chance to talk about the 4th one that he built. Anything till now, Marcus?
Well, what I'd say is if you could send me the links to all of those repos for the hypergraph apps that were created, that'd be awesome. I'll share those in chat. But nothing more to add beyond what you just said. That is exactly where Web3 needs to go. It needs to build apps. It needs to actually build something beyond DeFi. DeFi is great, love it. And also, what's next? And this feels like
What's next?
Yeah.
Yeah, so one application, the first application is BetterBox, very interestingly built by some interesting engineers in ETHCAN. And what they used was the public spaces of the Hypergraph framework to, you see the architecture here, maybe I can expand. So if you can see over here, right now the IMDb ratings are pretty much rugged. If you pay more, I'm not claiming that, but people claim that. I don't know. I don't watch movies, okay? But people say that the ratings are sort of
We all know you're a movie star. It's okay.
so let's say, but they are, so people don't IMDb is not trustable. Based on IMDb, you should not be deciding what movie to watch or not watch. That's what people say. I don't know, right? And you need a better public repository of these movies and the ratings, and people could rate left and right to basically make a better public decision on what's correct and what's not. And for that, this BetterBox team built uh, this mini app called BetterBox Mini App with World ID and the graph, Hypergraph framework to just basically empower people to rate movies. So all the movie data exists on the public knowledge graph, and they had this very interesting app app design. Here you can see the app design where you can just come and rate the movie, and that data also gets published on the public knowledge graph. And you can just have the best reviews of these movies by the public, for the public, on the public knowledge graph. So nothing can be rugged, everything is transparent on the blockchain itself. It's called BetterBox. Very interesting application of Hypergraph, the first one you can see. Second one, World ID, also really interesting application. here, let's go. So what they did is they mapped an agent ID to a real human. All of us in today's world have given our agents enough information that we can map our agent 1:1 with our original ID, right? But that information definitely needs to exist in a little more private way. So they created this application where you create an agent and map it to your world ID and utilize it in various forms of internet to reply to people, to do random things and stuff like that. And that mapping happens on the private sync servers of the knowledge graph. Very interesting application as well, as you can see over here. And the third one was Lewis. This was another interesting app in which what happens is that all of us have health, goals. And let's say there are these Aura rings that exist in the space. You can sign in with your Aura app and track your sleep and stuff like that, right? And you don't want to share that information. So let's say you and me are in a competition, Marcus, that who has a better sleep. So we both go on this application, sign in, and then we create a space between the two of us, a private space between the two of us, to and create a challenge. Who has a better sleep for the whole week, right? And share and have a private sync server space between the two of us, sharing all the Aura information that Aura ring tracks, and basically it can rectify who had a better sleep. It's a challenge, a personal challenge between the two of us. So this is another interesting application where the data is very sensitive. You don't want to share it in a public space or put it on the cloud. You want to although share it with your friend, and you create a private space and start sharing that information via private sync servers of using the Hypergraph framework. So this was a pretty cool UI that they created. So you connect your data and you can just share and challenge yourself to follow certain goals using the Hypergraph framework for sensitive information. And the last one that won the competition was Barry's application, the Hypermaps framework. And I would let him talk about that one and maybe give a small demo as well.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for that overview, Pranav. Really, really, really exciting. Please, if anyone's out there is excited about thinking how there's programmable money out there with ERC20, it feels like we're at the place where there's programmable knowledge. And that feels really fun to see some of these projects using knowledge in a unique way. And great job with the presentation. Great job going out there to ETH Global Con. And yeah, Barry, dude, go ahead, share what the heck you did with your project here. Pranav, could you send links to all those right there, either in Telegram, Slack, or something like that? I'll share that with chat. Go ahead, Barry. Take it over, buddy.
Sounds good. Yeah. Yeah. So basically, I joined a little bit late to the ETH Global competition, and we're just like deciding what to build. And I was actually bouncing ideas with Yaniv, because I was like exploring Hypergraph. This seemed really cool. And at some point, he was like, I think he just said something, and I was just in my head. I was like, okay, a mind map, knowledge graph, right? Knowledge graph, mind maps, right? Mind maps. And I was just thinking AI mind maps, right? So you have an idea, and then you use AI to basically bounce this idea with you, right? So so a good way to describe it is like you're trying to pick somewhere to go tonight, like a restaurant, right? And you just say what kind of food is like out there in New York, for example, right? And then AI would give you an answer, right? And then you can go and explore this thought. So you have like this thought, okay, what about this? What kind of restaurant? And I'll demonstrate this in a second. So what's like the best restaurant? And you just narrow in on what you want, and then suddenly you're like, wait, hold on. I don't actually want what this gave back to me, but I want to keep the result and I want to see it. So you create a branch, and it's basically a spatial space where you explore ideas, you find dead ends, you find solutions, and then you basically like have all of that in front of you. So just to show you, let's see, presentation. Okay, I'll just share my screen. Hold on, let me find it. I'll just share my screen. Sorry. Screen. The screen. Can you guys see it?
Yep, go for it.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Yeah, so I skipped all the login and stuff. As you can see, we have private space. This is basically for you to brainstorm, and we have public spaces where you would publish the thing that you built. So if we go into the flow, this is like the main interface. This is quite empty, so we might create a new message. And for example, what's the most popular restaurant in NYC, right? And we can go like, and then this is basically your root node, and then you can create add a plus, and then AI streams a response, and the most popular. So let me see, sandwich, French. Okay, that's cool. So for example, I would be like, give me some French restaurants then. And we go like this.
Could you make the screen a little bit bigger in case anyone's watching on mobile?
Yeah. Yeah, I can. Yeah, I think I'm zoomed in as much as I can now. Okay.
That's good.
And so this so the AI assistant suggested some French restaurants, and I said, okay, so French sandwiches, and I was thinking, okay, French is good, so give me some French restaurants. And on the right is giving me these restaurants in New York, which are pretty good. But you know, French is good, but it also mentioned something about sandwiches, and I'm gonna go, how about a good sandwich place, right? And I press plus, and it's gonna give me some sandwich places in New York, right? So now I've got options. So as you can see, it's like it created a tree. So option A, sandwich, option B, French, and I'm just comparing, and then I can create basically trees of conversation. So like user can have a branch. The other thing you can do with this is maybe you don't like this reply, right? Maybe what's a good sandwich place? Central. I see you can edit this and create a branch like this.
Yeah, for those of you who haven't been, Katz's Delicatessen is the best sandwich I've ever had in my life. I've actually been there.
There we go.
Highly recommended. The best sandwich in my life.
Here we go. So we just found the best sandwich place in New York by using trees. So now we can compare. So we have these two replies next to us, right? So wait, this is the French. Sorry, this is, so we go like this. And you can drag and drop them like around. So this is okay. So it actually gave us the same place. So we can clearly tell this is the best place in New York, not only in New York but in center as well.
It's a sandwich this big. I'm not even kidding. It's this big. So it's very accurate. This helps. This is like double checking in real time.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
Exactly, and I hope nobody was hungry during this. But anyway, so and so like this is the central Manhattan. So we have these options, and just in New York, these are the options. So like if you're going outside, maybe you want to try some of these places, right? So basically, it's a good way to visualize data. And if we zoom out, right, we can organize it any way we want. And all of this, all of these are entities on the hypergraph. So each one of them is, I can show you the schema later. And each one of them is an entity. It's just one entity is an AI assistant. It has a property. What are you, like an AI assistant or a user? So it's either user or an AI assistant. And we have another entity type, which is called a comment. And we can drag it here and we can say, let me zoom in a little bit here as well. And we can say, food or just restaurants in NYC, right? So save it. This one doesn't actually do anything, doesn't connect to anything. It's just for organization. and you can basically add any shape you want, right? So this is like for mind maps. So we created like a little mind map here. You can zoom out, you can see like the relationships, and you can, if you want, you can add like a totally new branch. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So we can ask, good restaurants. Okay, good bars in NYC, right? Let's keep it thematic, and it brings back these. Sorry for the jumping. I just like playing with stuff, but you know.
And it's interesting because
Yeah,
naturally
yeah,
you have been going into this more visual. You have a lot of experience working with front end design,
yeah,
and I have a little bit, just a baby a
hmm
bit. And
yeah,
I've naturally gravitated towards more of a visual UI, almost like pieces of paper on a table
hmm
when I'm
hmm
thinking about knowledge graphs. And I'm wondering
mm,
what made you choose this, or did it feel right for you to choose this? Because I know initially for myself, when I'm learning knowledge
hmm
graphs, I'm building different toolings to like teach people
hmm
how to understand them.
hmm
There comes a point in this design. Maybe we could talk about this next week because I'd love to have you on next week, Barry,
hmm
about design decisions when interacting with knowledge graphs because it's a new way of thinking.
mm,
And when you
absolutely.
have a new way of thinking, you have to represent it differently because something has changed. And so I'd be curious to talk about that with you next week if you'd be free. We can go into the code of what you did with hypermaps. We can go into some design
Yeah,
decisions you made, and we could see if that might be helpful for people to listen into. How's that sound?
yeah, sounds fantastic. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think it's a really good way to explore LLMs in general, and just I mean, obviously the knowledge. Um, Final example. I promise they'll be lost. Um, Give me a. I'm actually curious. Let me try this. A name of a dog, right? Um, Keep it totally random, and I'm just curious if it's going to give me the same result. How about biscuit?
Okay, that's cute.
How about waffles? All right. How about, what is that?
Pumpernickel.
Pumpernickel. Oh my god, that's an interesting name.
All
Let's say
right.
it's very catchy. And yeah, you can kind of like Nimbus. All right, you can kind of play with it, right? And you can organize it any way you like, and let's say,
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your focus and build on this. I would like to go in more
yeah,
detail next week. Um,
yeah,
and
and this is yeah, absolutely. Just to kind of reiterate, this is all stored in the hypergraph. So if I log out and like log in again, and if I refresh the page, all the information will stay in the same place, right? So I'm refreshing right now. You will see everything the same way as it was before. So yeah,
cool,
see it reloaded. Yeah, so
cool,
it's
very
the
cool.
back end.
That's the back end
So
magic, hypergraph. Very
Yeah.
cool.
so what he's trying to do right now, if you think about it, is like we are creating Figma on Web3, but in a
Mm-hmm.
private space, local first, using blockchain properties.
Yeah, yeah.
How is it different? Let's deep dive a little more in that. So now what we have is a general connect app that universally connects you to all the applications or spaces you are in. Let's say you are a Figma person, or a Facebook person, an Instagram person, a, a open table person. All of them will have the same sign in. Once, then you can go and check in that I want to right now check Figma. Once I'm inside there, then I can have public Figmas and private Figmas. The public Figmas could talk about in the future. People would always ask you, how was the design decision of how to create the graph node, and then how did you come up with this? We could publish those things live, and people could see how the company or how the ecosystem iterated and created this graph node publicly with different PRs, changes, and things like that. That's an amazing feature. Other than that, because it is private and local first and not stored on the cloud, all the sophisticated information in the beginning, when it's not published, remains on the private sync servers, and people have incentives to run those private sync servers and locally store everything. in the future, when you publish it with the blockchain, again, there are amazing things that people could query and get results from directly from the space and build their own applications from there. And that's how you build the next million users, the next million dApps on Ethereum. Have new primitives, a better framework, and all the features that are missing in the Web2 world because of how fundamentally it was created to build the next wave. And that's how we launched Hypergraphs, and the ecosystem is really excited about it.
Yeah, I completely second that. The way this framing of this toolkit of this framework allows builders to think different and then attack directly at some of the vulnerabilities of these Web 2 centralized ways of thinking. You brought up IMDb right away. That we could offer builders in Web3 could offer something different to people who want to use IMDb that's not going to have that type of the pay for play strategy that they use. It goes right to the heart of a lot of strategies, and so it unlocks the ability to think, how can we create value from day one? Not just, oh, it's crypto. That's not the value anymore. It's we're actually going towards real world use cases day one. When you start building like this and thinking like this, it automatically looks at different opportunities, which is really cool as a framework. So
totally, that sounds good.
With that being said, I feel like this was a great session. Pranav, Barry, awesome having you guys on. And for those of you in chat, thank you for popping in. The beginning of Hypergraph has initiated, so I'm happy to be a part of it with everyone viewing. And for those of you out who are more curious about this, check out the documentation, check out the repository, go ahead and see what is in there and start building. We have one question. Lewis, we're going to go ahead and go into details about the actual app next week with Barry. So we'll get to that question for sure. Okay. And that'll be a good time. Let's see what another question here. We have one question. I think this will be a good one for that. Would love to hear the views and opinions of the speakers, which is you guys, Barry, Pranav, about OpenAI ChatGPT recent federal case, forcing them to openly share all of the chats, even the deleted ones, from all of their users on demand, apart from bringing more people to Web3, AI, obviously.
Okay, guys, I love every government and establishment that exists. That's a disclaimer. Yeah, but I feel at the end, these technologies that we are creating always challenge the dissent, right? And that's why if we create it in the Web2 way, including AI, I don't think it would not face challenges from the dissent. And that's why we need, like privacy on the internet is a right, and I think can only be enabled by Web3 and the models and the blockchain that it was created in. And I think this is one of the opportunities to do that. So I hope you got your answer from what I was trying to say in those senses.
And I just want to add something. I love every government the same way as Pranav, but more. That's it.
Great answers from both of you. And I think I'll just leave it at that. I think that's a great way to end this. And Web3 forever, guys. All right, guys. Until next week, everyone, thank you for joining. Barry will be on next week for Builders Office Hours. We're going to go into a deep dive into what he built and talk design, talk Hypergraph, talk the framework, what it was like to be building with Hypergraph. Exciting time for that. And if there's any questions, of course, drop them in the chat. And until next week, guys, take care. And Barry, Pranav, if you could stay on the chat before I'm going to close the stream. You know how that goes. Just stay on. Take care, everybody.